The reason she evaluates you early on in the dating process is because she's attracted to you. Wait, what? That's right. If Ashley didn't have any attraction to you whatsoever, she wouldn't have to test you because there's no need for her to evaluate your character. Welcome to Just the Tip Tuesday. Okay, so if Ashley is evaluating you and your character, then that means she's actually consciously or subconsciously intrigued, curious, or interested in you as a long-term mating prospect. She needs to know if she can feel safe in a relationship with you. As I've said many times, women's primary need is to feel safe, not just physically, but also emotionally. If Ashley has zero attraction to you, then she doesn't see you in her intimate future, and there's no need for her to evaluate your character. And, key point, even if a girl or a woman is not interested in a long-term relationship in general right now, if her attraction to you is a 6 or higher out of 10, then she's still going to instinctively feel the need to evaluate your character. Unless you're Chad and she's in her try the ice cream flavors stage. Key point. And this is where you get your 6-pack abs, 6 feet tall, 6-figure income ideas. If she is in her hookup stage and or is younger and typically not as ready to settle down as someone who is older, then yes, a younger woman or someone who's gotten out of a long-term relationship and needs to sow her wild oats is going to be more attracted to physical qualities. Now, if you are interested in just hooking up, you know you prefer a more physically attractive woman. But if you're desperate, you'll take anything. Well, maybe not anything, but you'll adjust your standards because it's not for long term, potentially. But if Ashley is ready for a relationship, or at least open to one, then she has a different set of standards that aren't quite so shallow. Let's assume Ashley is a highly desirable woman. She's kind, she's thoughtful, she's fun to be with, she's beautiful, she's even easygoing. Now, in the past, Ashley's dated a few guys who were good to look at to her, but they either weren't ready for a relationship or they didn't treat her very well. She even got cheated on a few times because they were in their test the ice cream flavors stage. So either way, the timing wasn't right or they weren't right. But we all learn from experience. So in Ashley's world, she learned that men either didn't want to progress in a relationship or they weren't trustworthy. Which brings us to why women test men. Naturally, Ashley didn't trust men because of her own personal experiences, even though the guys she chose were her choice. Just like when you choose poorly, that's your choice. You got to watch for the flags. And in both cases, it's not so much that Ashley didn't trust men in general, but she didn't trust herself to choose well. Just like some of you might be a little reluctant to date women because you think all women are, insert negative expletive, but it's not so much that that's the case, but you were attracted to women who treated you poorly. So just like you should find out more about the person's character, about the woman's character of who you're potentially going to date, which means you might want to test her, more on that in a minute. Ashley also needs to evaluate or test the men she meets as potential prospects so that she can feel safe. Because no matter who you are, man or woman, if someone asks you outright, are you loyal? Not very many people are going to say, well, I've cheated on everybody I've been with, but yeah, you can trust me, right? So of course you have to actually observe the behavior when it's not obvious that there's actually an evaluation going on. So of course, in her past, even when she had asked that question outright, well, even though the men's intentions were good at the time in that very moment, it turned out that she couldn't trust them, just like you might have had that experience with a woman in the past. And in fact, if you have, share your experience so others can learn from it. Now, by the time Ashley met John, who was actually a really good, loyal guy, she didn't know who to trust. By this time, she unconsciously learned how to evaluate more subtly, Now, you'll call this a test, or you might call this an evaluation, and nobody likes being tested, especially if it's on purpose, but it's natural. And in fact, as I mentioned before, you should be testing her as well. And again, I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. So, an example of a more subtle way of finding out what John's true character is, Ashley asked if John would spend Friday night with her instead of going out with the boys. And when John said, "No, sorry, my commitments are like cement," then Ashley said, "Well, can I come along?" Now, this may not seem like a test, and it might not necessarily be a test, but how you handle it is often the determinant if it is a test. So again, John said no. This is a commitment he had with the guys. That was a standing commitment. Maybe it was a pool night or a gaming night or whatever night it was. He wasn't going to ditch on his friends for Ashley. Now, we've all had bad experiences in our past that lead to some insecurities. Or we've seen unhealthy examples with our parents or our primary caregivers when we were young. And because John understood Ashley's insecurities because of her past experiences with guys who weren't ready to commit to one woman, he was firm but gentle about it. He said, "Don't worry, babe, there's no women allowed. And besides, you're the only one in my world." That's not simping. You're firm in that you're not giving up your commitment to your friends or yourself, important, but at the same time, you're understanding that here's another human being who's had some bad experiences in the past and she doesn't know you well enough to trust you fully yet. Now, here's the best part. Handling Ashley's test allowed John to actually test Ashley, because he could gauge her reaction to him handling that test maturely, gently, firmly. This was an opportunity for him to test her on accepting boundaries. Even emotionally healthy women will test you, or at the very least, evaluate you, if she's interested. Key point. Even if Ashley is still a little worried about what John might be up to, she will, unconsciously at least, appreciate his commitment to his commitments, his dedication to his commitments, his unwillingness to compromise his standards. Now remember, none of us learn this stuff in school, so we're all a little between the super emotionally healthy and super emotionally not so healthy scale. You are, I am, she is, we all are. Or we're probably not watching these videos. We all come into relationships with a little bit of our own baggage. So let's say Ashley subconsciously appreciates John's commitment, but in the moment she's still a little insecure or she's a little cool and she needs some time to process her feelings about this. That's normal. This is also a way for John to test Ashley. If she's a bit cool, no big deal, let it pass. But if she starts acting a little bit passive-aggressive or punishing him for not getting her way, it doesn't mean that John ditches her if that's Ashley's only negative trait or one of the few negative traits. We all have traits. Instead, he still doesn't necessarily ignore it. He will address it with her. He might say, "You're an amazing girl, Ashley, and I think our relationship has potential if we can work on you learning to trust me." John can say this because he knows he can get another girl if it doesn't work out with Ashley. And if she doesn't handle it maturely, if she is emotionally unhealthy or really damaged from whatever trauma she's had in her life, maybe she freaks out or maybe she punishes him in an ongoing way. Well, John has no problem saying, "See you later." Remember, most women aren't consciously evaluating you or testing you. In fact, key point, if she's emotionally healthy, she really only pays attention when something triggers her subconscious mind that something's a little off. Now, whether it really is or it's because of her past experience, that's when she might pay a little bit more attention and go into the "how can I find out about his true character" mode. In fact, you might feel the same way if you've had a lot of bad experiences with women in the past. You might be like, okay, I need to pay a little bit more attention when the red flags show up. They might be a real red flag, or they might be a pink flag, or they might be a flag that's really more about you and your past, just like it might be for Ashley and in her past. Now, one thing I will say about guys in this situation, oftentimes you don't see the flags as readily because you'd never in your life ever consider doing some of those things to another person you care about. If you can stay grounded, amused, or curious, whatever she does won't affect you. You'll be able to make logical decisions. You won't react, you'll respond. And the side effect is she will feel more safe with you. Now, as I mentioned, you want to be testing her as well. And there are 5 ways you can do that that are ethical. If you want to know what those are, watch this video now. Thanks for being here. God bless.